When the operation concluded, I personally cuffed him. He tilted his head back and asked me, "Irene Jiang, did you ever love me?" I smiled, leaned down, and patted his cheek. "No, enjoy your prison meals, my dear first-class merit." The next day, the man who had mobilized half the city's police force and been ambushed for half a year escaped from prison. Hayden was gone. When I heard the news, even my first-class merit award hadn't been approved yet. The transport vehicle carrying prisoners to the East City Detention Center was bombed, leaving 9 officers dead and 1 critically injured. The man who had mobilized half the city's police force and been ambushed for half a year hadn't even warmed the prison bench before escaping. The remnants of the explosion's smoke hadn't yet cleared as I stared at the charred marks and patterns. What's worse? According to my colleagues at headquarters, as an undercover cop, I'd infiltrated his inner circle for 2 full years. Not only did I toy with his emotions, but I also stabbed him in the back at the most critical moment. Given his vindictive nature, I was bound to become his primary target for revenge. "Officer Jiang, you don't look too happy." No one would be happy after their first-class merit award vanished. 27 hours after Hayden's escape, police deployed 15 drones and nearly half their K-9 units. Despite a full-scale, door-to-door search, not a trace of him was found. The man had vanished with utter arrogance. Before leaving, he'd used the blood of the escorting officer to scrawl these words, "I'll recapture my Rose." Who was this Rose referring to? The officers in the conference room all turned to look at me. "Even if you're staring at me like that," I shrugged, arms crossed. "All I can prove is that Hayden was love-struck. Otherwise, how could he have asked such a stupid question, whether I ever loved him, right after I'd cuffed him? Of course not. Work was annoying enough as it was." In the patrol car, my colleague George handed me the tablet with the case files. We traced Hayden using a payphone at this location after his prison break. I looked down, staring at the photo on the tablet. Yep. The place you two used to live together. After we confirmed our relationship, Hayden and I did live together here for quite some time. Stepping inside, the sight of the couple's slippers by the door seemed to suggest everything remained unchanged. Only the ashes in the ashtray right in the center of the coffee table were clearly fresh. The cigarette butt analysis is back. It's definitely Hayden's. As George and I entered the bedroom, he snorted. Pretty bold, hiding here within hours of escaping prison. Playing reverse psychology, huh? While police officers snapped photos for evidence throughout the room, my thoughts drifted. This was the first place Hayden and I lived together, and he was the first drug lord I'd infiltrated as an undercover agent. After graduating from the academy and inheriting my father's badge number, I was assigned to go undercover with Hayden. The reason was simple: I looked like a student, had the clearest eyes, yet was the most ruthless among my graduating class. Back then, Hayden hadn't yet become the boss of the largest drug trafficking organization in the Western region. He was just a second-in-command with little influence, but his youth made him stand out to us. If we wanted to take them all down at once, the best approach was to slowly plant the fuse. I hid as a cashier in the small convenience store downstairs from his apartment. Every night around 11 or 12, he'd come down to buy a pack of cigarettes. He had deep-set eyes and wore a black parka. When I first saw him, I was taken aback. For a young, somewhat notorious drug dealer, he had a face so strikingly handsome it was almost startling. His skin was almost icy white, his features carrying a hint of detachment. To avoid alerting him, I held back for over half a month before finally striking up a conversation. I basically told him, since he bought cigarettes every day, he should cut back. He raised an eyebrow, his expression cool as he glanced at me, then gave a light nod. After that, I used this chance to chat with him a bit each day. Truthfully, after all these days of chatting, I felt like I could make a cactus bloom, yet Hayden still showed zero interest in me back then. Fortunately, my comrade sped things up for me. It was a small-scale strike against a drug trafficking chain. While it didn't cripple the massive organization at its core, it was enough to wipe out some of its lower-level minions. Hayden's gang was among the targets. We deliberately let him escape, barely clinging to life, so I could rescue him from that trash heap. When I found him, he was covered in blood. His naturally pale skin, stained crimson, looked almost translucent. Even then, he didn't lower his guard when he saw me. I dutifully played the part of a startled convenience store clerk, then brought him back to my place after he told me not to go to the hospital. He stayed at my place for the next few days. Everything was meticulously planned: the position of his bedroom, the towel I accidentally dropped after stepping out of the shower, the inevitable physical contact while bandaging his wounds. I forced myself to be cheerful and lively, finding every way to make him laugh. I shaped the curry into little bears and tied the gauze into pretty bows. The crucial part was that we were alone together in the same room, and he managed to hold out for over half a month. Countless nights, he'd stare at me with those dark, unfathomable eyes. Though the captain repeatedly warned me to keep my cool, several times while propping my chin up to watch him, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd already given myself away. Until one day, due to work commitments, I came home late several nights in a row. That night, unusually, the house was dark. I took off my shoes and tentatively called his name a few times. No response. Just as I was fumbling for the living room light switch, a hand gently touched the back of my neck. In a split second, I forced myself to suppress the urge to spin around and throw him over my shoulder. Hayden embraced me from behind in the darkness, holding me in that position. My body was stiff, every breath of his brushing against my jawline. The sensation of being controlled by a stranger made every cell in me scream in protest. Truthfully, when I chose this path, I knew my goal was singular. In the darkness, I slowly relaxed my body. His kisses landed on the side of my neck, tender and deliberate. I had to play the fool, gazing at him with the most innocent, naive eyes. Even after we'd established our relationship, Hayden remained quiet and wary of me. This was far from enough. Hayden had no idea what I'd done for him. The things he liked, the things he disliked, the expressions he wore toward different matters, the arch of his eyebrow after eating a meal I'd cooked, or the subtle curve of his lips when I wore a certain dress. I stored every detail meticulously in my mind, reviewing them nightly until they became second nature. Finally, he'd smile when I got sauce on my lips while eating noodles, or gently ruffle my hair when I waited alone on the couch late at night for him to come home. When he crouched before me, tilting his head to ask why Irene wasn't asleep yet, I knew I'd won the first round. But that alone wasn't enough. I wasn't part of Hayden's future plans. I was just a girlfriend he could dump anytime. He wouldn't tell me where he made his deals, nor what he was really trafficking. But soon, my chance came. I was targeted by Hayden's rival organization. They kidnapped me on my way to the market the next day. Their goal was simple: use my status as Hayden's lover to threaten him. I was strapped to a chair, filmed by a camera. The man across from me spilled everything about Hayden, revealing my intimate partner was actually a drug dealer, detailing his ruthlessness, exposing him as a thoroughly corrupt individual. My mind raced. I couldn't appear too composed, nor could I completely lose my mind and become useless. I had to project a woman who was resolute, decisive, and oh yes, utterly devoted to Hayden. 11 hours after my abduction, Hayden finally appeared at the factory where I was being held. He was born to wear black. Only later did I realize he was a demon born of sin. My hands and feet bound, I looked at him tearfully. My lover, so intimate just days before, now merely glanced at me. Conditions. His voice was crisp and emotionless. 50 pounds of the new stuff from your 3 suppliers. The barrel pressed against the back of my head tightened its grip. After a long pause, Hayden let out a derisive snort. You think she's worth that much? With utter contempt and disdain in his eyes, the man gave me one final look before turning and walking away. I stared at his tall figure, almost blending into the night. That day, my life should have ended there. But who knew the barrel pressed against my head would shift toward the man behind Hayden? Watch out! The instant he fired, I had already shoved the shooter to the ground. But in my panic, I lunged forward too hard, and the bullet slammed into my arm. I'd been shot before, but back then I was wearing body armor. The searing pain blanked my mind for an instant, and by then the man beside me was already riddled with bullets. Sure enough, Hayden hadn't come alone, he had plenty of firepower hiding behind him. The man walked up to me, and the pain on my face was no act. The moment I saw him, I lunged forward and clung to him, sobbing. He visibly froze for a second under my embrace. After a moment, I felt his hand gently ruffle my hair. Why? I abandoned you. Why save me, huh? What I thought was, that guy's bullet hasn't even left the barrel yet. He'll probably be riddled with bullets from your backup before it does. But what I said was, it was instinct. I just wanted to protect you. In the darkness, I heard his voice soften. You don't mind what I do? I shook my head. But what I was thinking was, Hayden, someday, I'll make you the brightest metal on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? A hand holding a cigarette snapped me back to reality. It had been ages since I'd smelled tobacco smoke, and for a moment I felt dazed. Many colleagues like to smoke when they're deep in thought, but Hayden doesn't smoke. And to maintain Irene's image as a woman, I couldn't possibly smoke in front of him either. After getting that first-class merit, you'll have to step back from the front lines, right? George and I sat on the staircase landing. He ran his fingers through his messy hair, flipping through a report as he asked. I nodded. People like us, no matter the outcome, would eventually fade into the dust like grains of sand. What do you want to do after retirement? Teach. My answer came without hesitation. He raised an eyebrow. I feel like I have a knack for teaching. Hayden never went to school. So everything he knows, I taught him. Maybe it's my teaching talent, or maybe he's just naturally smart. I believe everything Hayden did was a declaration of war against the police and a way to force me out. He was arrogant enough to return to the place where we once lived together and leave traces of his presence. It was his way of telling me he would find me, that no matter how many officers protected me, I couldn't escape. So I don't think keeping me here under guard is a good solution either. I crossed my arms as I spoke to George leaning against my door in the motel room. If Hayden wants me, he should let me out. He sighed. What kind of talk is that? Every life matters. Until the very end, no one wants to see any comrade fall. Seeing my silence, he stood up and patted my shoulder. Irene, you know exactly how those deranged drug dealers retaliate against undercover agents. Bright sunlight streamed through the window, spilling into the room despite the blackout curtains. The sliver of light swayed back and forth. Yeah, how could I not know? My dad was the head of the narcotics squad back then. The dealers put $1 million bounty on his head. When my uncle found his body, I hadn't even graduated from the academy yet. Should I thank him for teaching his daughter one final lesson? Because I've never seen a corpse more horribly mutilated than his. So no matter what I witness now, nothing stirs within me anymore. My father always told me that a first-class merit award for narcotics officers is hard to earn while still alive. So I decided to earn one while I'm still alive, to show him in heaven. Day 3 of Hayden's escape. The Bureau's profiler again requested every detail about Hayden's criminal history from me. No choice, as someone who'd been in close contact with him, all my experiences would be invaluable. After taking that bullet for Hayden, he gradually revealed his true self to me. During that time, I began to realize he was deeply starved for affection. This worked incredibly to my advantage. Hayden had barely touched a woman in his entire life. He'd lost his parents at a young age. Raised by traffickers, his sweet tongue and sharp wit spared him from having his tongue cut out and legs broken for begging on the streets. His youth was steeped in cruelty and suffering, so he likely didn't even realize how desperately he craved a gentle, kind soul to love him. Hayden possessed a natural talent for crime. He was decisive, cold-blooded, obsessive, and ruthless. But as a lover, he was utterly foolish. He drowned too easily in a single act of kindness, rushing to please those he cared for. He tried to appear indifferent, but his every thought betrayed him in micro-expressions. So, even though I was a half-baked novice in matters of the heart, drawing on psychology lessons from the police academy, though clumsy and stumbling, I managed to figure him out. The final step was planting an indelible steel needle deep within his heart. If anything could be more profound than eternal companionship, it was that companionship, followed by sudden, permanent disappearance. As Hayden slowly climbed the ranks, he naturally attracted a swarm of admirers. Even knowing I existed as his girlfriend, countless butterflies still fluttered around him. Among them, the most prominent was Gloria. Gloria was likely a pseudonym. She possessed a strikingly vibrant beauty, a style completely different from mine. She resembled a beautiful silver needle coated in venom. She, too, had set her sights on Hayden, aiming to replace me as his girlfriend. On the surface, she was the owner of a local chain of bars, but in reality, she was the biggest drug dealer in that neighborhood. If she truly seduced Hayden, it would be a powerhouse alliance, and I'd be completely out of the picture. She didn't take me seriously at all, thinking that a schoolgirl like me could be easily pushed aside. At that time, Hayden and I were also going through a period of emotional stagnation. He was still kind to me, even passionately so, but he never explicitly rejected Gloria. Back then, I thought, perfect. The heroine, the hero, the third wheel. A grand drama. Play it right, and I could make him remember me forever. That time, it was a cruise ship business conference. On the surface, it was a listed company's annual meeting. In reality, it was a gathering of drug dealers. Our people were infiltrated throughout the ship, currents swirling beneath the surface. I attended as Hayden's girlfriend. But Gloria kept stirring trouble. First, she humiliated me at the banquet. Then, right in front of me, she brazenly flirted with Hayden. Hayden didn't refuse. Honestly, by then, I knew something was wrong. Even if Hayden really did change his heart that quickly, I was still publicly his girlfriend. It wasn't until that night, after my bath, when I walked into his room and found him gripping my wrist against the doorframe. Irene, swear to me you've never lied to me. In that instant, my heart sank halfway. I'd already envisioned the scene of my triumphant return home. Whether I'd make it back in one piece was another matter. But what he asked was for me to swear. Swear. That meant he had no proof. Most likely, Gloria had been whispering in his ear, sowing doubt that I was an undercover agent. He himself couldn't make up his mind. At this moment, I couldn't appear too desperate, nor could I stay completely calm. I've never lied to you. I repeated his vow back to him. He released my wrist. Hayden, I tried to take his wrist, but he jerked it away. I didn't lie to you, my voice trembled. Go back to your room. His tone softened, yet his words held no room for argument. I didn't move. I reached for his fingers again. He pushed me away. I stared at him, stunned. Gloria was right. You might just be a woman who's very good at acting. In the night, his dark eyes stared straight at me. I looked back at him in disbelief. You'd rather believe her than me? All that remained was the door he slammed shut without mercy. The tears that welled up in my eyes stopped abruptly the next second. Hayden still had some intuition. I didn't think Gloria truly changed his mind, it was his innate sixth sense that sensed it. No matter how perfect I played my part, something like this could always be exposed. Once the seed of doubt is planted, no one knows when it might grow into a towering tree. So, a strong remedy was needed. Thanks to Gloria, she had already set the perfect stage for me. I'd always told Hayden I feared water. In truth, I was a gold medalist on my high school swim team. Never imagined that long-buried detail would prove useful today. Another undercover cop was aboard, disguised as crew. He told me the ship's edge at the highest deck level was fully monitored by cameras. And based on the ship's route, there was a small island just 900 meters offshore. The sea breeze wasn't too strong tonight, and by 2 or 3 in the morning, the deck was nearly deserted. I positioned myself at the spot I'd planned, adjusting to where the camera would capture the best angle. The sea breeze lifted the hem of my white dress as I composed and sent the text to Hayden. I know I'm not as clever or capable as her, but this might prove I've never lied to you, right? I plunged into the sea. The drama of proving one's innocence and love through death can be infinitely amplified in someone starved for affection. That night, how I navigated toward the island using only a compass and the glowing face of a sports watch. How I lay on the beach waiting for my colleagues to rescue me, nearly packed to death by unidentified birds mistaking me for a corpse. I won't dwell on it now, that ordeal was certainly novel-worthy in its peril. Fortunately, my colleagues eventually picked me up in a rubber dinghy, and I hid for a while on a fishing village island in the opposite direction. During that time, I learned Hayden was frantically searching for me. Even though the footage clearly showed me, someone who couldn't swim, diving into the sea to prove my innocence to him. He still refused to believe I was dead. No one had ever seen him so distraught. He mobilized countless fishing boats to comb the waters for my trace. The ordeal at sea had left me badly injured, so I was recovering slowly. The day he found me, I sat on a small stool in a fisherman's hut, my braid hanging to one side, head bowed as I watched the sunset's reflection. I'd calculated that from his angle, my profile would look utterly tragic and devastatingly beautiful. All that effort paid off. He practically stumbled toward me, then held me so tightly. Men are all like that. They adore women who give everything without expecting anything in return. I felt like Hayden was squeezing me into his very being. I opened my mouth, using my soft, slightly hoarse voice to whisper to him. Hayden, you can let me go. I'm fine. If you like her, just leave me. But you could just tell me yourself that you don't want me anymore. I felt his body stiffen abruptly. His fingers gently tangled in my hair. Unlike that time before, Hayden was overcome with emotion. The one who couldn't leave me now was him. I rested my chin in the hollow of his neck. If jumping into the ocean back then was a gamble, then now I'd won. Where do you think Hayden went after he escaped? He's a madman. How could I possibly fathom a madman's thoughts? In the office, the fan whirred loudly. Light filtered through the blinds, yet the officers inside were nearly at their wits' end. No leads, no movements, vanished into thin air. Yet everyone knew with absolute certainty he'd resurface. He was never one to let things rest. Irene's family has been taken care of, right? As an exposed undercover agent, we can't rule out Hayden targeting her relatives for revenge. George rearranged the files, furrowed his brow, and fixed his gaze on me. Yes, Hayden was the one who knew my true identity. So currently, my family is under tight police protection. If nothing unexpected happens. But today, my right eyelid kept twitching. Though I'm not one to believe in such things, most of the older folks at the bureau do. Like eating your favorite meal before making a big decision to see if the taste has changed, that's called reading the signs. But this morning, my breakfast tasted utterly bland. Sitting with my eyes downcast, I'd been looking forward to retiring to the back lines after this mission. I'd even planned where to spend my holiday leave. But fate seemed intent on playing a cruel joke. The conference room door burst open as an officer rushed in. When his frantic gaze landed on me, my heart skipped a beat. "Officer Jiang, your nephew is in trouble. He was found this morning at 9 o'clock at Kaishaku on East Road." Sitting in the car, I listened to the officer's report in a daze. Needle marks on his upper arms, wrists, and thighs. Preliminary tests indicate repeated, high-dose heroin injections using disposable syringes. He's been transferred to First Hospital and is currently undergoing emergency surgery. Hayden's revenge had arrived. I opened my mouth, finding myself unable to speak. My mind buzzed, telling me to stay calm, stay calm. What I wanted to ask, what I needed to ask wasn't he assigned a dedicated escort? How could this happen? George voiced my question. The boy's in his senior year of high school, about to take the college entrance exams. His mother insisted his studies couldn't be delayed that long, so they only assigned officers to escort him to and from school. But still, I remembered my promise to that little brat Cody. Once he got into college, I'd buy him the latest top-of-the-line computer. But now, he was in the operating room, and I was outside. My cousin's wails pounded relentlessly against my eardrums. In the evidence bag clenched in my hand lay a note. Placed in Cody's pocket, it was a message Hayden had left for me. Hayden's handwriting wasn't pretty, but it carried a unique, obsessive sharpness. It read, "Don't you dare stop loving me. Don't you fucking get it yet?" Outside the hospital courtyard, it was the first time in days I'd yelled at George. Hayden's target is clear, it's me. As long as I'm locked up, he won't be caught, and his revenge will keep coming. Then why won't you let me out to lure him out? George didn't respond. His feet were surrounded by cigarette butts. Just now, my nephew was wheeled out of surgery. I always thought I was composed enough, but at that moment, my voice still trembled. His mother was crying like that, yet she never blamed me. She said she could blame many people, but she couldn't blame me. What could I do? Her son ended up like that because of me. Even if I died and gave my life to her son, it wouldn't be enough. Do people always need an outlet to vent? Had I been bottling things up for too long? After a long while, I finally noticed the hand resting on my shoulder. "You've been through a lot, Irene." George gave a bitter laugh and patted my shoulder. After all these years as colleagues, that single gesture was enough for me to understand. It was time to go all in. The reason Hayden escaped prison? We'd miscalculated the intelligence we had on him. We underestimated his firepower and the remnants of his old crew still lurking in the shadows. Something hadn't been completely eradicated. That fuse buried deep underground, we'd overlooked it. The plan now was simple. Since Hayden was so fixated on me, I'll be the one to lure him out. But before we could finalize our plan, he came knocking himself. At 3 in the morning, the bureau received an anonymous email. It demanded I be delivered, fully bound, blindfolded, and immobilized, to an abandoned factory in the eastern suburbs. Otherwise, 5 bombs hidden in the city center CBD would be detonated. This act instantly roused the early-to-bed, early-to-rise chief from his bed in a rage. An emergency meeting was convened overnight. I would indeed be transported, fully bound, to the location Hayden specified. But that area would be sealed off by nearly 10 armored vehicles and 100 officers. Drones would patrol around the clock. Bugs and signal locators were sewn into the lining of my clothes. In short, if Hayden dared to come, he wouldn't be coming back. Scared? By the time George blindfolded me with black cloth, the operation was nearly complete. Since Hayden also demanded no police within a 100-mile radius, the perimeter wouldn't be too close. In other words, I'd be alone, blindfolded, in a pitch-black factory for who knows how long. I shook my head. Ever since childhood, I'd never feared the dark. With my eyes covered, I felt George gently smooth my hair. He stood close, whispering solemnly into my ear. Rest assured, I'll bring Hayden to justice. When that day comes, let's go to that new buffet restaurant up north for a meal. 9:45 p.m. Time in the dark always dragged, especially with my hands and feet bound. Honestly, beyond the physical aches, the hardest part was staying alert. The knot tying me up was a seemingly permanent loop, a slip knot. If needed, I hoped I could contribute to catching the fugitive. But minute after minute passed without a sound. This inevitably reminded me of the first time I'd been tied up waiting for him like this too. Come to think of it, maybe he saw too many people and chickened out. Or maybe he's just toying with us. Truthfully, before this, we'd imagined Hayden's methods for kidnapping me. But we never anticipated this, a direct and brutal assault. The first bomb detonated in the eastern forest. The instantaneous roar nearly deafened me. Then, bullets whizzed through the air amid screams echoing from the distance. This man had no intention of quietly taking me back, it was pure bandit tactics. Perhaps. This wasn't even the kind of firepower a fugitive should possess. The moment I realized this, I immediately began loosening the knot binding my wrists. But it was too late. When I heard the hissing sound, I still couldn't free my wrists from the rope instantly. Choking gas instantly filled my nostrils. I reached out to grab something, but my consciousness gradually sank into darkness. As I fell, the blindfold covering my eyes slipped off. Through the haze, I saw a pair of leather shoes appear before me. My final thought was, I was wrong. This wasn't the arsenal of a mere drug dealer. He was still hiding something from me. He was far more terrifying than I'd imagined. I stared at the slightly damp ceiling. Fine rain fell onto the windowsill, as if this were just another ordinary autumn evening. The old TV in the next room still hummed. I lay on the bed. Nothing bound me, yet I couldn't move. Probably because the drugs hadn't worn off yet. My clothes had been changed, the listening device and tracker must have been removed. I tried to roll my eyes, but my lids felt incredibly heavy. 20 minutes after waking up in this room, someone approached the bed. Long time no see. Black still suited him perfectly. He stood like a solitary pine tree defying wind and snow. Hayden. It had been a long time. The last time I saw you, it was when I cuffed your hands. Irene. Unable to move, I let him do as he pleased. Seeing the faint satisfaction on his face, I should have understood what happens when you anger a drug dealer. The needle pressed against my upper arm as I watched him slowly inject the liquid into my body. This was the first time. After he finished, he gently smoothed my hair and kissed the corner of my mouth. Irene, you're not being good at all. Below is my first conversation with Hayden after regaining the ability to speak. What did you inject me with? Heroin. Don't worry, it's a very small dose. How many of my comrades died? Not many. My side suffered heavier casualties. How many guns do you still have? How much drugs do you control? Even with a warrant out for you, can you still supply others? He laughed. Irene, do you really think I'd spill everything to you like I used to? His knuckles pressed against my cheek. When he was close, I could smell the scent of pine and snow. My dear policewoman. Falling in love with you, is it my misfortune, or yours? My movements were confined to this room. Looking out the window, I could see lush trees and the distinctive walls of an old residential complex. Screaming for help was impossible. If Hayden could live here so openly, it was highly likely this entire building, even the neighborhood, was a drug-making and trafficking operation. Somehow, I must have overlooked something, becoming the crucial flaw in his fatal reversal. The man returned to this room every night. Each time, he brought me things he thought would please me. But he didn't know that all my previous preferences were fabricated to please him. When he injected me with that solution for the second time, I almost considered suicide in that instant. Instead, I rushed into the bathroom and vomited until I was dizzy. Clinging to the sink, I saw my reflection in the mirror. Bloodshot eyes, pale skin, trembling lips. I don't want to die. Even if I have to crawl. Even if I have to scrape by. I won't die. The intervals between injections grew shorter, and I knew exactly what he intended to do to me. One night, as I tossed and turned in agony on the bed, the man pushed open the door. Want this? He leaned over, eyes lowered as he watched me. Beg me. In his hand was the very thing that once terrified me like a raging flood. Now, it was my salvation. I knew that once it pierced my arm, all my pain would vanish. I stared at him fixedly. Once more, I told myself. I must live. I cannot die. Seeing my nod, the man's lips curved into a satisfied smile. He pinned me to the bed, kissing from the corner of my eye down to my collarbone. He was satisfied. He knew that from this moment on, I would never be able to leave him. Hayden had obtained a fake certificate from somewhere. A marriage certificate, mine and his. He held me close, yet it was he who laughed first. You'd probably never agree to marry me, right? So, it's fine. I just went ahead and got it done for both of us. My gaze shifted to the glass, where our reflections were mirrored. Sometimes I think, let it be like this. Let's just drift through life in this haze. Sometimes I think of taking revenge through death. If I died, this man would probably suffer for a while. But I can't. I'm not that fragile. Hayden holds me every night as we sleep. He probably never imagined I'd be so unexpectedly compliant. He began allowing me some freedom to move about. That day, it was pouring rain. He came to pick me up with an umbrella. As I descended the stairs, I lost my balance and fell hard to the ground. He picked me up and held me for a long time. He apologized countless times. He knew it was his fault I had become this way. But if he wanted to keep me under control, he had no choice. Maybe because I was too well behaved, Hayden rarely locked me up. Still, he remained extremely vigilant about any aspect where I could connect with the outside world. That day, we went downstairs to eat breakfast at a small stall. The cold front arrived unusually early this year, and I shivered, pulling my neck in. This little stall probably had something to do with Hayden too. I could only manage 2 bites of noodles before pushing my bowl toward him. He sighed, reaching up to ruffle my hair. At least eat your fried egg. I don't like it. I dodged his hand. But you used to love it, didn't you? I was lying. He ate my leftover noodles without much complaint. Hands in my pockets, I watched the steam rise from the pot, occasionally dispersing into the crisp winter morning mist. Hayden really went out of his way to make me happy. He brought back a game card. It was a popular offline 2-player game. It required 2 players to cooperate through levels, but whenever it was my turn, we kept failing. So even Officer Jiang has things he's not good at. The person beside me curved his eyes slightly, like pine snow melting in an instant. I turned my face away, refusing to look at him, and flung the controller aside. I can't keep trying to please you forever. He placed his controller beside mine, brushed my cheek, and pinned me against his sofa. I saw my reflection in his dark pupils, like a ghostly apparition. His kiss landed between my brows. Let's just keep going like this. Hayden always liked to sleep holding me. It wasn't exactly a scientifically sound way to sleep, and honestly, his arms would go numb after holding me for too long. I listened to his steady breathing beside me, then slowly slid my hand over to his pillow. I sat on top of him, pressing the barrel of the gun he kept by his pillow against his forehead. I pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. No bullets. You can't tell, can you? In the darkness, the man opened his eyes and stared straight at me. His fingers traced the muzzle. I slowly lowered my hand. As a frontline narcotics officer, I should know whether a gun is loaded just by the weight. But I didn't know. I truly couldn't tell anymore. My movements were initially confined to that small courtyard. Impressive. The auntie who ran the bean cake stall every day was actually a skilled drug manufacturer. And the uncle who was always drunk outside the courtyard deftly controlled all the supply points. I always thought Hayden was alone. But I was wrong. During my undercover work, he kept his guard up around me. The auntie and uncle seemed to have a child. Always quiet, he'd play basketball alone in the courtyard after school. That day, I stood under the eaves watching him divide a sausage into pieces to feed the starving cats meowing below. When he noticed my gaze, he glared at me fiercely. "What the hell are you looking at?" I stood with my hands behind my back, the wind lifting the hem of my coat. After that, I'd wander into the yard whenever I had a moment. As for Hayden, though he was always gentle with me, even a bit spoiled, this time, he'd learned his lesson. No matter how I tried, soft or hard, I couldn't get a single useful word out of him. Small sores began to form around the injection sites. Drug enforcement officers should know better than anyone to never touch drugs, yet undercover agents remain the most vulnerable to addiction. I forced myself to be more optimistic each day, but negative emotions still tugged at me like countless threads. That autumn evening brought the first fierce wind of the season. I'd only mentioned swinging on a swing in the courtyard as a child, and Hayden had one custom built for me. The distant glow of the setting sun pierced the twilight as I sat, counting my reflections. Most of the time, that's how I am. To stay lucid, I must force myself to think things over and over. Once I could perform mental arithmetic with lightning speed, but now even 10-digit multiplication or division takes me ages to process. My toes touched the ground, and I heard someone calling my name. I didn't respond until I saw him rushing into the courtyard. The moment he saw me, his eyes and brows were filled with anxiety. "Where did you go?" He pulls me into a tight embrace. "You weren't in your room or the hallway. I thought you were gone." A faint tobacco scent clings to him, mingled with autumn's chill. "I'm so afraid of losing you." The fabric of his trench coat brushed against my cheek. I didn't want to waste the energy to push him away. So I let him hold me as if he wanted to mold me into his body. "Don't go. Please, don't leave." It was a murmur, yet it sounded like a plea. I tilted my head back, staring at the single leaf swaying on the branch as it drifted slowly downward. The sunset's glow had long faded, and only darkness remained in my heart. Hayden pulled me into the room by the hand. When Hayden held me in his arms, chaotic images sometimes flooded my mind. My nephew wheeled into the hospital, George with his legs blown off, the once turbulent sea, and my father leaving in less than dignified fashion. They all stood before me, some accusing, some comforting. My dad gave me a shove, and I staggered forward. He said, "Girl, keep walking. Don't look back." This time, Hayden pushed a box of syringes directly toward me. He rubbed my head. "I'll be gone for a while. If it works out, we'll go abroad together. We'll go under new names and start over, okay?" "Okay." Like hell I would. The day he left, I leaned against the doorframe, watching him. The dusk outside blended him into a haze of sunset glow, the cruel evening light slicing through his silhouette. I couldn't stand anymore, leaning my weight against the wall. Finally, I watched him slip into that black car. But my eyes fell on the 2 plastic bins hidden against the wall. I called Hayden. By the time, he should have taken off. My voice cracked with tears over the phone. "Hayden, I feel so awful. My body itches so badly, I can't muster any strength. Please come back. It's my birthday today. Come back. I'm alone. I'm so scared." His voice tightened almost instantly as he tried to comfort me, telling me not to cry. I heard someone calling him on the other end. He was about to board the plane. But after only a few seconds of hesitation, he softened his tone to soothe me. He said he'd be right back, told me to be good and stop crying. I hung up, grabbed the gasoline by the door, and poured it onto the floor. The pungent smell nearly overwhelmed my senses. Finally, the instant he pushed open the door, I lunged forward and hugged him. He froze for a moment. Then, he softened his voice. "I knew it." He raised his hand and gently ruffled my hair. As if he didn't see us standing in the middle of the gasoline-soaked floor. As if he didn't see the lighter in my hand. "Irene, where did you get the gasoline?" "The son of that old lady who lives next door in the same building." I turned him. "Don't worry, he's already run away. He knows more than I do. He'll lead the police straight to your drug stash. As for you, Hayden, I was so afraid you'd run away again, so this time, I'm taking you with me." The lighter fell from my hand. I stared at the tiny flame. Faint yet capable of burning everything. Just like Hayden's feelings for me. He knew my sweet talk was always a trap. Knowing this time, returning might mean never leaving. Yet he still came back the moment I cried, still clinging so hopelessly to this love of mine. This child who grew up in darkness, defeated by the very light he craved most. Too bad that light was fake too. Even as the flames licked at our hems in the final moment, he persisted with that question, asking me softly, softly. Did you ever, even for a moment, see me as your lover? I stroked his cheek and laughed softly. Hayden, you fool. My lover has always been this country. I see. Even at the very end, he shielded me from the flames. His cough echoed beside my ear. Bad woman. But I've loved you from the very beginning. Finally, the flames consumed us. Before leaving, I thought I saw my father standing not far away, watching me. Dad. Just as I thought. Getting a first-class merit while alive is really tough. In this city's major narcotics bust, nearly 500 kilograms of drugs were seized and over 100 suspects apprehended. 16 officers made the ultimate sacrifice. First-class merit awarded posthumously. One narcotics officer infiltrated the drug den, outmaneuvered traffickers, uncovered critical intelligence, and heroically gave his life to neutralize the cartel leader. Honorary medal awarded posthumously. While sorting through Irene Jiang's belongings, George found the plane ticket displayed in her cabinet. November 28th, a flight to Hawaii. Booked the day after Hayden's arrest. The girl always grumbled about her annual leave. Well, now. She really gets to take that leave. A long, long vacation.